Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are celebrating someone very special,
Oh, yeah.
the comedic genius of the one and only Teri Garr.
Absolutely.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment with your favorite Teri Garr role, because there are so many.
Oh, so many.
For this deep dive, we are taking a cue from Kevin Fallon's article in the Daily Beast.
Okay.
The scene that should have won Teri Garr the Oscar.
Wow.
You know Teri Garr?
Oh, yeah.
She was brilliant in everything.
Everything.
From Dancing with Elvis to stealing scenes in Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein, what a classic.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
But Fallon argues that there is one scene in Tootsie
Okay.
that truly showcases her comedic mastery.
Yeah.
And we're going to unpack why.
I love that. I love that movie, and I can't wait to hear this.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So what's remarkable about Teri Garr is that her comedic talent often flew under the radar, you know?
Yes.
It was so effortless, so natural, that you might almost miss how skilled she was.
Totally agree.
But make no mistake, she was a master of her craft.
No, absolutely. She was a master.
Right.
Mm.
It's like she could deliver a line with this perfect blend of wit and exasperation
Yeah.
that just made you burst out laughing.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, she wasn't just a comedic actress. I mean, she was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, for goodness sakes.
Oh, my God. That's right.
Like, that was a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It was.
Yes.
She was in everything.
Exactly. And even in her more dramatic roles, she brought this subtle humor,
Yes.
this ability to find the absurdity in any situation.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But for this deep dive, we're focusing on Tootsie,
Okay.
specifically because it earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, wow.
Now, for those who haven't seen Tootsie, it's about a struggling actor played by Dustin Hoffman,
Right.
who disguises himself as a woman to land a role on a soap opera.
It's so good.
And Teri Garr plays his friend and sometimes love interest, who gets caught in the middle of this whole charade.
It's a classic for a reason.
It is.
Yeah.
So this is where things get interesting, because Garr actually felt that both she and Jessica Lange,
Okay.
who played the female lead in Tootsie, being nominated in the same category, was a bit of category fraud, to use her words.
What?
I know, right?
Category fraud?
Category
I've
fraud.
never heard that before.
So wait, category fraud, what does she mean by that?
Yeah, what does she mean?
Well, she believed that Lange was clearly the lead actress,
Okay.
and she felt that lumping them together in the supporting actress category undermined the significance of both their performances.
I see.
It's like she was pointing out this inherent bias against comedic roles, this idea that they're somehow less deserving of recognition than dramatic ones.
That's so interesting. I never thought about it that way.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
It makes you wonder how often comedic performances are overlooked
Yeah.
or minimized because they don't fit neatly into these award categories.
Right, because you think like, oh, comedy, that's just, light and fluffy, but really
It's hard.
it's hard to do.
Yeah, exactly. And what's even more interesting is that Garr raised this issue without any animosity towards Lange. You know, she seemed more concerned about the principle of it all the way. It reflected a broader trend in the industry.
That shows a lot about her character, I think.
Totally. That speaks volumes about her character, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shows that she was not only a brilliant comedian, but also a thoughtful observer of the industry and its quirks.
Right. And all the things that might be a little bit messed up about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, we've established that Teri Garr was a comedic force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
And that Tootsie showcases her talents in a particularly compelling way.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the scene that Kevin Fallon highlights in his article?
Okay, yeah.
What makes it so special?
Lay it on me.
Well, Fallon describes it as the cinematic ideal of blowing a gasket.
Oh my God.
And I think that captures it perfectly.
Okay.
It's a scene where Garr's character finally confronts Hoffman's character about his deception.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like watching a pressure cooker finally explode.
Oh, I love that analogy.
All the frustration, the confusion, the betrayal, it all comes pouring out in this one incredible outburst.
I can't wait to hear more about this.
I know, I can just imagine her delivery, that perfect blend of anger and humor that made her so unique.
Yes, I can see it so clearly.
Oh my God. And Fallon points out this brilliant detail, the way Garr starts tapping her nails on the table right before her tirade.
Oh, stop.
It's like a warning sign,
Yes.
like a subtle bit of physicality that builds the tension and foreshadows the eruption that's about to come.
Ooh, Ooh, that's so good. The little things, right?
It's those little touches, those nuanced details that elevate her performance from great to legendary.
Absolutely. It's like the difference between a good comedian and a great comedian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that this scene isn't just about comedic timing and delivery.
Okay.
It also speaks to a deeper theme that Garr herself highlighted in an interview with the AV Club.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She talked about how Tootsie, even decades later,
Yeah.
still resonated with her because it captured this truth about pretty nice girls being taken advantage of by slimy men.
Wow.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point.
It is.
It makes you wonder if Tootsie, beneath all the laughs,
Right.
was actually a much more subversive film than people realized at the time.
Totally. And it adds this whole other layer to Gar's performance.
Yeah.
She's not just playing a funny character. She's embodying a certain kind of experience, a certain frustration that many women can relate to.
And that makes it so powerful.
It does.
So we've got this incredible scene that Fallon says should have won Garr the Oscar.
Yeah.
And we've got Gar's own insightful commentary on the film's themes.
It's all coming together.
But what I really want to understand is how her perspective on Tootsie shapes our understanding of her comedic genius.
That's a great question.
And that's something we'll dive into right after this.
Can't wait. You know, it's fascinating how Gar's own words can completely reframe our interpretation of Tootsie.
It really does.
You know, like, on the surface, it's a lighthearted comedy about a man in a dress.
Yeah, totally.
But you know, when you consider Gar's perspective, you start to see these deeper layers of social commentary.
Totally. It's like she's inviting us to look beyond the laughs and consider the power dynamics at play.
Right.
It makes her performance even richer, knowing that she was aware of these underlying themes.
It does, and it also makes you appreciate her comedic brilliance even more.
Yeah.
You know, she's not just delivering punchlines, she's making us think about the absurdity of gender roles and societal expectations.
You know, it's funny because when you think about it, Tootsie could have easily fallen into a trap of being a one-dimensional farce.
Right.
But Gar's presence, her awareness of those deeper issues, adds a level of sophistication that elevates the entire film.
Precisely. And that brings us back to that scene Fallon highlights.
Okay, yes.
The blowing a gasket moment.
It's a good one.
It's not just funny, it's a cathartic release of all the pent-up frustration that Gar's character has been experiencing throughout the film.
Right, and I think that's why it resonates so strongly with audiences. It's like she's giving voice to all those times we felt misunderstood or taken advantage of.
And she does it with such precision.
It's amazing.
Think about the way she uses her physicality to build the tension leading up to that outburst.
Yeah.
The nail tapping, the exasperated sighs. She's a master of nonverbal communication.
It's almost like she's playing a game of emotional chess with the audience.
I love that.
Carefully maneuvering us into a position where we're both laughing hysterically and feeling a sense of righteous anger on her behalf.
That is such a good point, and that, I think, is the hallmark of a truly great comedic performance.
Yeah.
It's the ability to make us laugh while simultaneously provoking us to think, to question, to see the world in a new light.
And isn't that what Teri Garr did so brilliantly throughout her career? She could make you laugh until your sides hurt, but she also had this uncanny ability to sneak in a bit of social commentary, a touch of the absurd that made you stop and think.
She was a master of blending humor and insight, of finding the funny bone in the most unexpected places. And that's why even decades later, her work continues to resonate with audiences.
Okay, so we've talked about Teri Garr's comedic genius, her insightful observations about Tootsie, and that unforgettable scene that Kevin Fallon thinks should have won her an Oscar.
It's a lot.
But what I'm curious about is how all of this connects back to her earlier work.
You mean her roles in films like Young Frankenstein or even Close Encounters?
Exactly. Do you see any common threads running through her performances? Any recurring themes or techniques that she used to create those iconic comedic moments?
That's an interesting question. I think there's definitely a sense of fearlessness in her work, a willingness to be vulnerable, to make herself the butt of the joke if it serves the comedic purpose.
That's a great observation. She never seemed afraid to go all in, to fully embody the absurdity of a situation. And that takes a certain level of confidence and comedic skill.
Absolutely, and I think her ability to find the humor in even the most uncomfortable or awkward situations is another recurring theme. She had this knack for playing characters who were a little bit offbeat, a little bit out of sync with the world around them.
And yet we couldn't help but root for them. right?
Oh, totally.
Because beneath that quirky exterior, there was always this core of humanity, this sense of vulnerability that made them relatable.
Precisely. And I think that's what makes Teri Garr's comedic legacy so enduring. She wasn't just funny, she was human. She reminded us that it's okay to be a little bit different, a little bit messy, and that there's humor to be found in even the most unexpected places.
Thinking about all of this, it makes me wonder how Teri Garr's career might have been different if she had received more recognition from the Academy. Do you think that Oscar win would have opened up different opportunities for her? Or do you think she would have continued to blaze her own trail regardless?
That's a tough question to answer, but I think it's safe to say that Teri Garr was a singular talent who carved her own path in Hollywood. She wasn't afraid to challenge conventions, to speak her mind, and to embrace the absurdity of it all.
And ultimately, I think that's what we celebrate about her today, a fearlessness, her wit, and her ability to make us laugh while simultaneously making us think. We'll delve more into that legacy and what it means for comedic actors today right after this.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider how an Oscar win might have, impacted her career trajectory.
Yeah.
But, I have a feeling she would continue doing her thing regardless.
Right.
She was such a unique talent, so comfortable in her own skin.
And that brings me back to something Kevin Fallon said in his article. Sometimes when someone is just so good at what they do,
Yeah.
it's easy to overlook their brilliance.
It's true, their skill becomes almost invisible because it seems so effortless.
Exactly. And I think that's what happened with Teri Garr. She was so naturally funny, so good at delivering those lines with perfect comedic timing, that people might have underestimated the depth of her talent.
Right. They saw the laughs, but maybe didn't fully grasp the artistry behind those laughs, the careful choices she made as an actress, the way she used her physicality and her voice to create these unforgettable characters.
It's like she was a magician subtly weaving her spell over the audience without ever revealing her secrets.
And when you think about that AV Club interview where she talks about Tootsie and the theme of pretty nice girls being taken advantage of by slimy men,
Yeah,
it makes you realize that her comedic brilliance wasn't just about surface-level humor.
right.
There was always this sharp intelligence, this awareness of social dynamics informing her performances.
Definitely. It's like she was using humor as a tool to expose hypocrisy, to point out the absurdity of certain situations.
Yeah.
And she did it with such grace and wit that you could almost miss the underlying message if you weren't paying close attention.
Exactly, and that's what makes her work so timeless. It's funny, it's thought-provoking, and it continues to resonate with audiences even decades later.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the incredible career of Teri Garr, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
Okay.
How does Garr's perspective on Tootsie, her observation about the film's themes, change or enhance your own understanding of the movie? And how does her comedic legacy inspire you to find the humor in everyday life, even when things get a little bit messy?
Good question.
Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment with your thoughts. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep laughing.